At 57, I had grown accustomed to the predictable rhythm of my existence. For decades, I've convinced myself that love was something orderly and scheduled, like weekly grocery shopping or dental appointments. After raising my daughter, mostly alone following my separation, I had poured everything into creating stability, being the dependable lighthouse in her storms. I believed that maintaining perfect order would somehow protect me from life's surprises. But that's the curious thing about life's timing. It waits until you've finally relaxed, until your defenses have lowered, before revealing something that challenges everything you thought you knew. Please, learn from my experience. It was a peaceful Wednesday morning. Sunlight filtered through the thin cotton curtains, casting delicate patterns across my living room floor. I had just finished showering and wrapped myself in my cherished terrycloth bathrobe, faded green from countless washings, but still my favorite comfort. The bathroom mirror was completely fogged, so I swiped a small circle clear with my fingertips and caught a glimpse of myself. The exhaustion in my eyes wasn't just from poor sleep. It was the kind that settles deep after years of being everyone's foundation. I was patting my face with a towel when I heard a soft, almost hesitant knock. "Mom?" came the voice of my daughter Sarah. I wasn't expecting her. The night before, she'd messaged saying she might drop by to return my baking dishes, but I assumed she meant later in the day, not 8:45 in the morning. "Just a second," I called back, my heart inexplicably quickening. I secured my robe and opened the door slightly. There she stood, grown and beautiful, with that familiar determined set to her jaw she'd inherited from her father. "Hey," she said, eyes quickly scanning me as if checking my condition. "Do you have a minute?" I opened the door fully. "Of course. Is everything all right?" She shrugged, stepping back into the hallway. "Everything's fine. I was just in the area earlier than expected, and thought I'd drop off your dishes before I forgot again." But something in her expression seemed different, not quite worried, but focused, intense in a way I hadn't witnessed since she was 17, and trying to explain why she'd missed curfew. I followed her down the hallway silently, my damp hair cool against my neck. She placed the stack of baking dishes on the kitchen counter carefully, almost reverently. Then she just stood there, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. "Sarah," I said gently, "what's happening?" She wouldn't meet my eyes at first, just rubbed her neck and exhaled deeply. "I had a dream about Dad last night," she finally said. "Oh?" I kept my voice neutral. She rarely mentioned her father. They'd made peace before his passing, but Sarah seldom discussed it. "Yeah, it was strange. We were in our old house, and he was in the garden. He looked younger than I ever remember seeing him." Sarah finally looked up, her eyes glistening. "And he told me something. He said, 'Tell your mother what's in your heart.'" I blinked. "What's in your heart about what?" Sarah sat down, resting her elbows on the table and staring at the grain of the wood like it held secrets. "I'm not sure," she whispered, "but I woke up feeling like I needed to talk to you. I've been carrying this feeling I can't explain, and I thought maybe if I came over, if I saw you, it might make sense." I sat across from her, my robe still damp at the collar, and reached out, placing my hand gently over hers. "Sarah, you can tell me anything." She flinched slightly, as if even kindness was overwhelming. "I don't even know where to begin," she said, her voice breaking. "It's not bad, Mom, I promise. But it's unusual. It's made me question so much." A silence settled between us, soft and weighted, making the refrigerator's hum seem louder, and the wall clock's ticking more pronounced. Then she looked up, truly. "Looked at me. When you were younger," she said slowly. "Before Dad, Did you ever feel like there was a version of yourself that never got to exist? Someone freer, maybe. Someone who wasn't always required to be the strong one. I felt something stir in my chest, warmth mingled with sadness. Constantly, I admitted. Her expression softened. I think that's what I glimpsed in the dream. Not the mom version, just you. I couldn't speak for a moment. There was something about the way she said it, the tenderness, the attention. It wasn't inappropriate, nothing like that, but it was intimate, profoundly so. As if she was seeing me for the first time. Not as the person who packed her lunches or signed her report cards, but as a woman, a complete human being. I want to know that version of you, Sarah said. If you'd let me. Something in the atmosphere shifted, not dangerous, not wrong, but powerful and completely unexpected. I swallowed, my fingers tightening slightly over her hand. The sunlight had moved, creating golden stripes across the table, and the air felt heavy with unspoken words. I don't know where to start, I whispered. She smiled, small and sad. Maybe just by letting me stay for tea. And so I did. I rose quietly, filled the kettle, and tried to ignore how my hands trembled slightly as I moved, because for the first time in years I didn't feel like someone's mother. I felt like someone. Sarah stayed for hours. What began as tea evolved into brunch, and brunch turned into retrieving an old photo album from the bookshelf in my study. She followed me there, mug in hand, and I noticed how she lingered near the shelves, examining the family photographs. She picked up one me in my early 30s, holding her as an infant, cheeks round and eyes tired. I don't remember you looking like this, she said quietly. I sat on the edge of the sofa, smoothing my robe across my legs. I barely remember it myself. She placed the photo down carefully, as if it might disintegrate, and joined me. We opened the album together. It smelled faintly of dust and vanilla, and as we turned the pages, my heart pulled in all directions: nostalgia, loss, pride, regret. You were beautiful, she said after a moment, eyes scanning a picture of me in a flowered dress, laughing at something her father had said when things were still whole. I felt my cheeks warm. That was ages ago. She looked at me then, expression firm. It still matters. I wasn't sure how to respond. I wasn't accustomed to being seen that way anymore, especially not by my own daughter, who had only ever known me as Mom, the reliable one, the woman who never faltered even when everything around her did. I suppose I buried much of myself, I said finally. I thought that was what mothers were expected to do, be the anchor. Sarah reached over and touched my hand. Hers was warm, steady. But what if you didn't have to be the anchor anymore? That question unsettled something within me. We sat in silence afterward, the kind that's more comfortable than words. I'm not sure how long we remained like that, but eventually she leaned back into the sofa. Legs stretched, fingers interlaced behind her head. You know, she said casually, when I was little, I used to think you had special powers. That made me laugh, a soft, surprised sound. Special powers. Yeah. You always seemed to know everything when I was fibbing, when I was hungry, when I was about to cry. You could fix anything: scraped knees, broken toys, nightmares, like you had some kind of magic. I felt something tender break open inside me. I did my best, I said, voice low. But I lost pieces of myself along the way. Sarah sat up again, leaning forward, elbows on her knees. You know what's odd? She said, eyes on the carpet. When I knocked on the bathroom door this morning, I almost walked away. Why? I asked. I'm not sure, she said. Maybe because I was afraid you'd look at me and see the child again, not the woman who came to tell you something honest. I studied her face. You didn't finish your thought earlier. What is it you've been carrying? She rubbed her palms together, took a breath. It's not one specific thing. It's more that I've been feeling disconnected from everything lately, my job, my friends, even the men I've dated. It all feels empty. And I realized the only place I've ever felt completely safe, completely understood, is here with you. That struck me deeper than I anticipated. I know that might sound strange, she said, rushing the words. I'm not saying this to make you uncomfortable, but when I see you now, I realize I never truly saw you before. You've always been this constant in my life, but now you're, I don't know, real, more than a mama person. And that makes me want to know you differently. There was something so genuine in her tone, something open, raw. I found myself tucking a strand of damp hair behind my ear and looking down at my hands, now resting in my lap. I don't know if I even remember who that person is, I admitted. The one who existed before motherhood. Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. Then maybe we can discover her together. I looked at her then, not as my daughter, not as the child I'd raised and worried over and sacrificed for, but as a woman with kindness in her eyes and truth in her words. A woman who somehow had awakened something in me that I thought was long gone. The kettle whistled from the kitchen, startling us both. I stood slowly and walked toward it. My reflection in the window caught my attention as I passed hair loose, robe still clinging, cheeks slightly flushed. I didn't fully recognize that woman, but perhaps that was the point. Perhaps I was just beginning to. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house was too still, the kind of quiet that makes your thoughts echo louder than they should. I lay in bed with the lamp on, staring at the ceiling, fingers resting on my chest as if to keep my heart from floating away. Sarah had left around 6, after helping me clear the dishes from our late lunch. She hugged me tighter than usual before, stepping onto the porch, pausing for a moment as if she wanted to say more but decided against it. The atmosphere between us had changed, subtle, unspoken, but genuine, and I wasn't certain what to do with it. I kept thinking about her words, how she said she wanted to know me, not as her mother, but as myself. It stirred something buried, so deep I hadn't touched it in decades. Around 2 a.m, I got up and wandered barefoot into the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of water and leaned against the counter, gazing into the darkness beyond the window. The backyard looked mysterious in the moonlight, familiar yet strange. Like my reflection had become Dot, my phone buzzed on the counter, startling me. Sarah, are you awake? I stared at the screen, heart suddenly racing. I don't know why, maybe it was the timing. Maybe it was everything left unsaid. Me. Yes, couldn't sleep. Her reply came almost immediately. Sarah, me neither. Can I come over? I hesitated just for a second, then, me, doors unlocked. 15 minutes later, she was standing in my kitchen, her cardigan buttoned halfway, hair tousled as if she'd been tossing in bed. I didn't mean to disturb you, she said, voice low, almost apologetic. I couldn't stop thinking. I motioned to the table. Sit. Talk. She did, folding her hands in front of her as if she needed to keep them occupied. I sat across from her again, the same way we had that morning, only now the world was asleep, and the hush around us made everything feel more vulnerable. I know. I'm crossing some kind of invisible boundary, she began. I feel it. There's something about today that made everything inside me shift. It's like I've been walking through fog, and today you cleared it. I swallowed hard. You're not the only one who felt it. That caught her off guard. Her eyes met mine and lingered there. I've lived a very careful life, I continued. After your father left, I built these walls around myself: routine, purpose, control. I told myself that was strength, that not needing anyone was safer. Sarah nodded slowly. I understand that. I've done the same in my own way. But when I'm around you lately, I feel like I'm finally breathing. The words landed heavily, right in the center of me. I don't know what to do with all this, I admitted. She leaned in slightly, not too close, but just enough for me to feel the warmth of her presence. Maybe we don't do anything right now. Maybe we just sit with it. Let it be what it is. Silence. Again, but not the awkward kind. It felt still, almost sacred. Do you remember when I got pneumonia in 4th grade? She asked suddenly, the memory surfacing like mist. You were so ill I had to sleep on the floor beside your bed. She smiled. I remember waking up and you were holding my hand. You looked completely drained. But you were right there. You always were. I looked down at my hands again, older now, with lines and spots and memories etched into them. I guess I've spent my life giving, I said softly. And I never once thought I'd be the one who needed something in return. You deserve more than what you've settled for, Sarah said, her voice quiet but firm. A lump rose in my throat. I blinked it back and stood up, needing movement. I should probably try to rest, I said, more to the air than to her. But as I turned to walk toward the hallway, I paused. My fingers touched the door frame, and I turned halfway back to her. You can stay, I said, almost a whisper, if you want. Sarah stood up slowly, not presuming, not hurrying. Where? I nodded toward the guest room. You know where. She walked past me, slow and deliberate. When she reached the hallway, she paused beside me, just close enough for the warmth of her body to brush against mine. Good night, Mom, she said softly. I turned my face up toward hers. Good night, Sarah. And then she disappeared down the hall, the guest room door clicking shut behind her. I stood there for a long time, the hallway dim, my robe brushing against my bare ankles, the air thick with something I hadn't felt in years. Longing, confusion, hope. I returned to bed, lay down, and closed my eyes. That sleep didn't come, only the memory of her eyes, and the quiet awakening beginning in my chest. Next morning arrived soft and grey, with clouds hanging low, and a cool breeze drifting through the partially open kitchen window. I hadn't slept much, just dozed here and there, thoughts moving in circles, always returning to the same place. When I stepped out of my bedroom, the guest room door was still closed. I made coffee slowly, intentionally. My hands moved through the motions, but my mind was elsewhere, caught in the things that had been said, and the things that hadn't docked by the time I poured my second cup. I heard the creak of a door. Sarah stepped into the hallway wearing the same cardigan, but her expression had softened. She looked rested in a way I hadn't seen before, maybe not from sleep, but from having finally released something heavy. She gave me a shy smile. Morning. Coffees. Fresh, I said. She walked over, poured herself a cup, and stood across from me at the counter. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The silence had transformed again. Now it was filled with questions. Finally, I broke it. Did you sleep all right? She nodded. Yes, better than I expected. I sipped from my mug and studied her face. Sarah, about everything we discussed yesterday. I've been thinking. Me too, she interrupted gently. And I think we need to talk, really talk, with no fog, no fear, no pretending. I braced myself, heart tightening. All right, she took a breath. I don't want to confuse you. I'm not here to disrupt your life, just to make sense of mine. But yesterday and last night made me realize something. What's that? I've been searching for connection in all the wrong places, dating men who felt like strangers, chasing approval from a father who's gone. But with you, I feel something honest, something rare, and it terrifies me. Her voice cracked slightly. At the end, I set my cup down and stepped closer. I know exactly what you mean, I said. But this, whatever it is between us, it's delicate. It needs care. Not rushing, not labeling, just truth. Sarah nodded, her eyes meeting mine. Then let's be honest all the way. I stood still, every part of me aware of the moment, of how her presence changed the air, of how I didn't feel like the woman who organized cupboards and paid utilities. I felt seen not as a mother, not as an old habit, as a woman. I miss being known, I whispered. The real me, not the role, not the duty, just me. She took my hand, just held it, not with expectation but with understanding. I'd like to get to know that woman, she said, if she let me. The wind outside increased, rustling the leaves in the backyard. A storm was approaching, but inside, everything was calm. I'm afraid, I admitted. So am I. We stood in the kitchen, morning light painting faint silver across the tiles, holding something fragile between us. It wasn't about right or wrong, it wasn't even about answers, it was about honesty, vulnerability, and a quiet aching need to be understood. Sarah squeezed my hand once, then released it. Let's take it one day at a time, she said, and I nodded. She stayed for breakfast. We made oatmeal and sat side by side at the table, talking about nothing and everything. Laughter came easier than I expected. The tension melted into something warm, quiet, and authentic. Later, when she left, she kissed my cheek soft, lingering. Not quite a daughter's kiss. Not quite anything else. Just a promise. As the door closed behind her, I stood in the hallway alone, but I didn't feel lonely. I walked back into the kitchen, picked up my cup, and looked out the window. The garden needed attention. The sky was beginning to clear, and somewhere inside me, something had begun to bloom.